Hey, what's good, family? I have some really cool information to share with you today regarding Omnisphere's new 2.6 update and specifically its arpeggiator function. What we're going to be working on today is creating something that sounds like this, and then taking that and resampling it to create some kind of synth line that has a catchy rhythm in order to build drums over it. It's kind of a reverse engineering way of a typical workflow, but I guess some people start with melodies as opposed to a drum beat or whatever. So let's go ahead and actually look at what we're doing here. The Omnisphere update has this really neat feature that has recently been added in to where you can add in certain cadences on each sequence. So it supports up to 32 beats or parts or whatever that you want to put. Each one has its own editable cadence that you can add to it. I guess I say cadence because I don't really know what else you would say. Automation or voicing, unique voicing, something of the sort. So this one is a combo that's in drop zone, but as you can tell, there are these little icons that are represented over almost every one, and they all mean something. So this one means that it's going to voice the entire chord. This one is going to do a step divider, which means that it's going to play two notes within this space. This is a pitch slide, and this is a highest note, and you can kind of see that like each one has a visual representation about what it's doing, which I think is really cool. Now, as all the other regular arpeggiators, you can see that there are some, like, you know, I guess playback options, the speed, the octave at which it can jump, and, you know, some other stuff, but this is going to be the highlight of what we're trying to do. I'm going to change this to join, and I'm going to play that same chord that we did, if I can remember what it was, and let's just go ahead and listen to how that sounds. Which is kind of cool. So I can actually go into a blank setting, and then for efficiency's sake, I'm just going to do maybe 8 steps with 8 different voicings, but I'm going to turn all of these on and turn everything up as high as it can go for now. And we're just going to kind of create our own kind of arpeggiator or arpeggio style with using the Age Nouveau bells. And this is just something that's really cool about Omnisphere, is that as opposed to having to do sound design from scratch, it's really easy to take one of the over 10,000 sounds, good lord, that I still haven't gotten all the way through, and then create something new and put your own spin on it. Of course, if you're feeling lazy, you can just, you know, copy the preset exactly, which I've never done, but you know, to each their own. So let's go ahead and start with, the first one is actually just going to be blank, and then we're going to throw in a 7th here, and that means that it's going to play 7 semitones up, and that was just a C that was being played. Then on this one we can do a chord voicing. Let's try chord voicing 2. This one is going to be a pitch slide that's going to go up 12. Oh, sorry, that's a transposition. I meant to do a slide. Then this one will be a high note where it's only going to play the highest. This one will be blank. I have no context of what I'm doing, by the way. I'm just doing this off random. And let's do a step divider that comes up into a final chord inversion. Let's say chord inversion -3. So I'm actually going to turn this down first and then put this to join. And let's go ahead and play that same chord to listen to how it sounds, which I'm playing C, G sharp, F, and C sharp. Which is kind of cool. I mean, it's, you know, maybe not usable immediately. We can kind of do some tweaking to it and maybe do a chord inversion +1 instead, and maybe put this as a triplet. Let's listen to that one. A little bit slow. Maybe try 1/8 triplets. And some other cool features that we can do is we can take the length down and make that sharper. We can add some swing to it if we want to. We can also, man, there's so much stuff. We can actually play with the speed that will kind of alternate, or I guess alter the offset, but I don't really want to mess with that. So maybe let's try that 1/8 again and try this. Okay, so I mean, it sounds all right. I am actually going to draw in a different chord. that is a little bit more viable. So that's technically quote unquote a seventh-ish with
after that, to F, and then do H sharp, and do with C, into B.
It's kind of happy, huh? I think that's because this is out of tune, but I guess if we want to make that sad, we can kind of just transposition that back to sounds so wonky. Okay. And then let's go ahead and do a cool feature called sound lock, where this is already on, but we can basically take parameters that we like and hold that to whenever we switch to a new preset. So let's find another bell that we like. So for this chord voicing, I'm going to try something that's a little bit sadder because I think that is giving it that overtone of being relatively happy. That's kind of cool. And then maybe let's try the lowest. Okay, so that's already there. And then within the join, I'm going to just try a different voicing to see if we can come up with something a little bit more interesting. That's kind of cool. I think that it's something that we can actually use. So I am going to delete this, and then let's go ahead and freeze this and then duplicate it. So to kind of give you guys a contextual idea, like what I've just done is make something that has rhythm and something that has melody to it. So now that we have something that we can bounce out, we can manipulate this and basically resample this into creating an interesting synth line that we can throw some drums over. So you've already heard what we have, but now what I can do is I can go in and look at these individual components and just kind of mix mash it up into creating something that's even more, I guess, pleasing to the ear. So I'm going to loop this. I'm not going to like do that whole thing where we loop and then I make you listen to the entire thing over and over again, but we can kind of go in by sections. So I actually like this first part, but I want to move this over. Dun, 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 dun. So we can move this over like a half beat or so. Maybe another half beat. And then I want this to also kind of move over as well. Yeah, I actually like that already. So we have these spaces and you have kind of a creative choice to where you can leave something in or add reverb or whatever, but what I'll do is I will copy this and now I can move this over and reverse this. And then I can kind of do the same thing with this as well, but oh, that's a little bit too long. Copy that, put that here, but then I can make this a transposition and leave this in beats mode, and now I have this cool one bar line that might be interesting. You can kind of see where this is going, right? So just from messing with this for a couple of minutes, we're already creating something that sounds kind of interesting. Just to kind of keep going, I might refrain or maybe not talk so much and just kind of do some stuff and see if it sounds interesting or not. Maybe duplicate this one. Actually, I just wanted that first part, so. And we'll cut this section here, and I want to transposition this up, but for variety's sake, I'm going to switch this over to complex mode and push that out and do a fade. Maybe not so much. Try that instead. Maybe try texture. Yeah. Maybe try a seventh instead. fifth, no, seventh. So and I kind of want something there to maybe be something that resembles some kind of chord, I guess, because that's a good way to finish that rhythm. So we can set this to loop and then hold Option and then just kind of click and drag. It's kind of a cool sound. Now that we have this 2-bar loop, we can condense this into just focusing on this component. And we have this neat little synth line that has something relatively interesting. Again, it's a little bit too happy for my taste, but it's kind of cool to just see how this is made. And I think that once I figure out how to make this stuff a little bit more dark and sinister, then it'll be kind of, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So you can, you know, kind of bounce that out if you want to. I guess what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate it and then just mess with this component and see if I can create something even more interesting, because I want it to have a little bit more glitchiness to it. I had it right the first time. And right here, we will reverse this, turn this up. But I actually want this to come in there. And then maybe do something interesting with this one. Hold that here and mess with the beats mode. Turn that to 1/16. So that turned the volume down by quite a bit, so we can kind of pump that out. And then maybe do a 9th. Maybe not the 9th. Let's try a 10th. Nope. Generally the 3-5-7 rule is usually okay. I guess if you're doing a -4, then that will kind of give you that darker undertone as well. But I guess if you know what scales you're working in, then you can kind of tune these to appropriation. Maybe try a 3rd instead. Yeah, or I guess -4 works too. Maybe not. It like sounds good when you listen to it by itself, and then when you listen to it in context, you're like, maybe not. So now that we have a general idea of this kind of synth line that we're using, and again, it's in F minor, which is what I make everything in, so that'll kind of come into importance when you start doing the actual melodic or like more in-depth melodic stuff or whatever. But having that in consideration, now that I kind of aware of this, I can go in and, you know, do a basic editing of this. I'm going to sidechain this to this group right here, and I think that I already have some drums and stuff made up. So I made these drums from the last time that I recorded this video, but the issue is that when I recorded it, only one side or only the left channel recorded my voice. So sorry, but it's cool because now this is a lot easier to just put together. You know, that's a general beat of how that's being pushed over, but if we kind of take everything away and then try to create something that's a little bit more glitchy, then we can kind of play with the rhythm of the kick first. I can use that and then kind of, and then there would be a snare right there. And all I'm doing is basically building drums based off of the rhythm that I hear. I don't think it was supposed to be there. Let me see. I have to listen to it again. this here and do a reverse. Boom, boom, pop. Put that to 4. And that just kind of has this more free-flowing drum beat as opposed to something that's just kind of like bang on grid or whatever. But the neat thing about this is that having these spaces whenever you make this drum beat leaves room for interpretation and room for, I guess, other percussive elements. So it doesn't always have to be like a kick and snare that's hitting on every 1 and 2, if that makes sense. So I also have some percussion stuff that I recorded out that we will take a look at right here. And I'm going to kind of not use this exactly unless if it fits perfectly, but this is a glitch loop that I've bounced out, which you guys have seen in my other videos. So let's go ahead and put that out and listen to how this sounds. Well, that worked out a lot better than I thought it would, but you guys are starting to see the point. Yeah, I guess now we can kind of look into a bass, which again, like I said, like the only reason why I have this content made is because I've already filmed this in a different version that was not as good as this one. But you guys are starting to see how you can start to build fundamentals off of this, or build your foundation about how you kind of want your track to go. So So that's just a general, bass line that has a F on every downbeat with some kind of variation in between. But having this is kind of neat too, because when you have this kind of thing, you again have spaces, and the more spaces that you have, the more room that you have for polyrhythm. So for me, I'm always thinking about how I can apply my neuro basses. And even though like this is relatively as far as the video I'm going to get into, just because I don't want it to just fizzle out or whatever, hopefully you can kind of see the context about how you can start building a loop just off of that simple function of using that Omnisphere, I guess, idea of doing this in context. And to be honest, doing this with bass is kind of the same thing. I think that melodics are a little bit easier to use because they are a little bit more pleasing to, or a little bit easier to hear in context. But let's go ahead and have a listen to that again. The more that you listen to it, the more ideas that you can kind of get. So like something that I heard right after that was this kind of like stutter snare. So pop, 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 pop. So that would be in a triplet. Let's go ahead and pull up the triplet guide. Except why are the increments so, okay, there we go. So 1/4, 2, 3. And generally when you have something stuttering, if you put them all at the same volume, it's going to sound incredibly loud to the listener's ear. So what I'm actually going to do is join this and then turn this down by quite a bit. Yep. So and then from that point, whenever you have something like that that has this like da-da-da, or a turnaround is what some people call it, you can add emphasis and start to build even more stuff. Hopefully that's a kind of neat intro to how you can use this kind of stuff. And Superior Drummer makes it really, Omnisphere makes it really easy to kind of do this and to have those kind of sparks for those synth lines that we're starting to hear a lot more. And it's a really neat function that we can all kind of, capitalize on in order to create more glitchy music that we enjoy. So thank you guys so much for watching this and sitting through with it if you've watched it through all the way. But I think that this is super cool. But if you guys have any questions or anything, then let me know in the comment section, and happy producing.